Mr. Luis Alberto Moreno, President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Your Excellency, Senor Horacio Manuel Cartes Sahara, President of Paraguay, distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, excellencies, distinguished business leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It's a great honor for me to address such a distinguished group of political and business leaders today on the occasion of participating Organization of American States Summit meeting here in Panama. It is fitting that we meet in a country that acts as a bridge between two continents and provides a passage between the two oceans. For this is the year when we hope to see the completion of a bridge to a life of prosperity, equity, dignity for all, where the needs of people and planets are balanced. Last month, I was in Sendai, Japan, for the UN Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. In July, the United Nations will host a very important meeting, Third International Conference on Financing for Development in Addis Ababa. I hope that the world leaders and business leaders will come to this Addis Ababa meeting, because this is going to be a very important one to support and to talk about the financial and technological support mechanisms for sustainable development goals, which will be adopted in September by world leaders. As I just said, in September, during a special summit meeting, the world leaders will adopt a sustainable development agenda with a set of sustainable development goals. We have identified the 17 development goals covering the all spectrums of our life, social, economic, and environmental dimension. This is in connection with the 70th anniversary of the United Nations founding. In December, in Paris, the world leaders will again meet to discuss and adopt a universal and meaningful climate change agreement. If and when leaders will adopt this one, this will be the first one that international community will have a universal climate change agreement for the first time in the history. These are all very important priorities of the United Nations, but it's for the whole world. And in there, I really count on leadership of business community. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, business has a key role to play in the success of all these forums and priorities which I have just laid out. The new global development agenda and the battle against the climate change will need resources, technology, and capacity building. Private sources and partnerships will be crucial. There is a tendency of expecting that all these resources will be financed by the government, public money. But as you will agree, and all government leaders will agree, we are not from this financial crisis. Many countries around the world, particularly developed world, are still struggling with their domestic economic crisis. Therefore, it will be extremely important to have a stronger partnership where business communities and philanthropists and all other financial institutions will participate in this. As you may remember, at the dawn of this century, when new millennium dawned, Millennium Development Goals were adopted by the world leaders. The United Nations introduced the notion of a global compact between business and society and the United Nations. Over 15 years since the institution of this global compact, where most of you are the members, the global compact has shown that when you engage business and all key players on issues of common importance, progress can be made. Access across the United Nations, our organization is now increasingly working in partnership with business on a daily basis. For example, there are Global Compact's CEO Water Mandate, the Caring for Climate Change initiatives launched all voluntarily by business leaders. At last year's Climate Summit meeting in September in New York, which I convened, leaders from business and finance announced commitments to reduce emissions and promote green growth. The United Nations Global Pulse initiative has already created successful partnerships with the mobile network operators and social media companies to leverage big data to improve humanitarian response in Mexico, to gain insights on public concerns about policy changes in El Salvador, and measures HIV/AIDS awareness in Brazil. And public-private partnership are helping support my zero hunger challenges. Many of you here today are our active partners, and I appreciate your leadership and your strong engagement with the United Nations initiatives. Around the world, business and investors are growing to recognize that business health and the health of societies is intertwined. No government or no organization, including the United Nations, can work properly and smoothly and successfully without active participation and support of business communities. This is one of the most important lessons which I have learned as a Secretary General. And there should be one another pillar, that's civil society. Therefore, governments, business communities, and civil society, we need to have a tripartite partnership. I'm always engaging with the civil society, and I'm always engaging with business communities. In fact, yesterday, before I left for Panama, I met a lot of business communities and civil society leaders to urge them to be part of this process of shaping post-2015 development agenda. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we see corporate responsibility initiatives and standards increasing nationally and globally. We see major investors moving away from fossil fuels. We see multinationals raising their minimum wage. Social and environmental responsibility is becoming mainstream and is increasingly a standard part of strategic corporate practices. This is a changing markets from within and for the better. We have to build on this momentum and bring on board those companies still doing business as usual that puts their profits before progress, their profits or their well-beings before national or global interest. This is the year to do it. We have to change. And this is a year for global action. For, as the subject of this summit implies, inequality is far too pronounced in this world. Prosperity and equity are out of reach for far too many people. And our environment is suffering. People say that, scientists say that we may be stepping on a tipping point, depending upon where you step. Then we may be in big trouble, depending upon if you step forward properly, wisely, then we will be able to save this planet Earth. But it needs to be done now. With business support for implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, we can transform our world. Our Global Compact now has over 8,000 membership and 4,000 non-business organizations participating with local networks in 86 countries, including many in Latin America. We have global action platforms on many of the issues on the agenda today. Business is proving the enormous power of collaboration. It is increasingly showing a willingness to be part of the solution to tackling global challenges, from women's and children's health to sustainable energy and climate change, from gender equality to peaceful, accountable societies. All those are part of 17 Sustainable Development Goals on which member states are now negotiating. From Monday, day after tomorrow, member states of the United Nations will begin their serious negotiations. In preparing for a new set of Sustainable Development Goals, the Global Compact, where you belong to this, has marshaled the viewpoints of responsible business. Over 1,000 companies gave us input on global challenges and solutions. They made it clear that they are energized by the prospects of a new set of world priorities and by the efforts to engage the private sector in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Many of these business consultations were held in Latin America with the companies in Colombia, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and Nicaragua leading the way. We have seen that the bottom-up approach to building national consensus on the Sustainable Development Goals is especially strong in this region. Excellencies, distinguished business CEOs, ladies and gentlemen, I thank all the business leaders here today who are already working hard within your companies to be socially and environmentally responsible and collaborating with others to realize a more sustainable future. I ask for your help in the making 2015 a historic year. I'd like to ask in four steps which are crucially important. The first, we need companies to help communicate and support the Sustainable Development Goals. After all, it will be the government as well as the business communities who will practice these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Your outreach and advocacy machinery can have a powerful multiplying effect. The Sustainable Development Goals will be a universal blueprint for the future we want, to which we can all subscribe. Second, implementation. The call is out for scalable partnership models. But the most significant progress will come when companies integrate the goals into business strategies. When government leaders bring all these 17 goals into their national economic social development agenda, and when business CEOs bring these goals as your goals, then we'll be able to make a success. Third, we need to mobilize financing. I appeal to investors to participate in the Addis Ababa conference, which I just mentioned, the Financing for Development, which will showcase a wealth of opportunities. Participate and invest in sustainable future. Fourth, we need business help to reach a meaningful universal climate change agreement. This negotiation, even though done by the government negotiators, without help and active participation of your ideas, we cannot make a success. Whatever you say, we are now reflecting your views to this negotiation process. Private sector advocacy can make a real difference in advancing well-functioning carbon markets. Business can steer governments to support smart regulatory policies and emissions reduction targets that are in line with science. Ladies and gentlemen, dear business leaders, the world needs companies and investors everywhere to do their part in meeting the needs of people today while transforming our prospects for tomorrow. I regard very highly my meeting with you today, even though this may be just my one-way communication to you. I really wanted to have a both-way communications, but I know that you are also expecting many leaders to present their views. So please listen to all these leaders' presentation, their visions. But all these visions cannot be one-way traffic. This should be mutual, two-way or diversified way of communication. That's what I'm reaching out. That's why I'm reaching out to business communities. Whatever you do in your companies, bring all these visions of the United Nations as your vision. Invest wisely so that we can save this planet Earth. This is suffering. Our planet Earth is suffering. The way we have been doing until now may suggest that people seem to believe that we have two worlds, but we have only one world. This is the only place where ourselves and our succeeding generations will have to live in prosperity and well-being and healthy. Then our vision, Sustainable Development Goals, are people-centered and planet-friendly. Therefore, I'm urging you, let us work together to make our world a better form where nobody is left behind, where everybody can live in peace and well-being with human dignity. I count on your active engagement and leadership. I thank you very much. Muchas gracias.